Widening scandal. A fourth undercover video exposing Planned Parenthood is released as a court issues a restraining order. Cathedral vigil. Paying respect in our nation's capital to the longest-serving American cardinal. $1 million bond. A fired campus cop held for murder after killing a suspect during a Cincinnati traffic stop. And ancient Christian heritage. We explore Rome's catacombs and the church's role in preserving them. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, July 30th, 2015. From Washington, D.C., good evening. Thanks for joining us for EWTN News Nightly. I'm Brian Patrick. A fourth undercover Planned Parenthood video is released today. Now, this one features a medical director discussing prices for aborted baby parts and how to avoid getting caught. This as a California court issues a temporary restraining order against the group that releases the videos. Catherine Szeltner is with us now covering this developing story.
Brian, a Los Angeles court says the Center for Medical Progress cannot release videos that include STEM Express employees. STEM Express is a for-profit company partnering with Planned Parenthood to allegedly harvest and sell aborted baby parts. The Center for Medical Progress says this lawsuit is just another attempt to silence their First Amendment rights. How does the Center for Medical Progress respond to a court order?
Because even though we're doing it through research, if it comes up as someone else is just doing it as a business sort of venture, it's a different spin on it.
With a new undercover video. Here, a medical director prices aborted baby parts and shares how not to get caught.
Almost to the point where we have to disclose to each other that we're all doing this, so if anyone gets called out or runs with it, that we're all like, oh, I didn't know you were doing this, oh, I'm doing this too.
Planned Parenthood doctors even acknowledge what the parts really are. STEM Express claims the videos are edited to present a misleading story on multiple fronts. The Center for Medical Progress upholds they followed all laws in their investigative journalism. The man behind the videos shared his technique with EWTN.
You really want to get a full picture of it. You have to proceed very gradually and very meticulously in order to get the kind of evidence that we obtained.
Pro-life leaders say the court orders can't stop the video's impact.
Planned Parenthood is in full damage control mode.
Family Research Council's Irina Grosu shares why the videos put the abortion provider on the defense.
They have pulled the veil back on the practices that Planned Parenthood is involved in. They really aren't for women. They're exploiting women and then exploiting the children and selling the baby's organs.
The restraining order against Center for Medical Progress will remain in place until an August 19th hearing. Meanwhile, the Senate plans to vote on defunding Planned Parenthood in the coming days. Brian?
Time is running out before they go home in August. Thank you, Catherine. Well, Planned Parenthood says its website was shut down yesterday in what it's calling an extremist attack. Hackers apparently flooded the site with traffic to keep users from accessing it. No one has claimed responsibility. This, of course, follows the release of those undercover videos that have put America's largest abortion provider on the defensive. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. America's longest-serving cardinal is being remembered tonight. Jason Calvi is at Washington's St. Matthew Cathedral for the vigil and visitation for Cardinal William Wakefield Baum. Jason?
Brian, Cardinal Baum served as Archbishop here in the 1970s. He was alongside St. Pope John Paul II during his visit to D.C. in 1979. Baum went on to serve at the Vatican, but it's here where his body will rest. One last procession into the cathedral for the man who was Archbishop of Washington from 1973 until 1980. And it's the last chance for the people of this city to say goodbye.
He needed some priests to kind of assist him in kind of celebrating at Mass. And that was a true experience, an experience of prayer for me as well, because you would be there kind of celebrating with him and you could sense the closeness that he had with the Lord Jesus.
William Baum was born in Texas in 1926. He then lived in Kansas City. He was ordained a priest in 1951. He served in parishes, taught in schools, and was an advisor at the monumental Second Vatican Council. He was named a bishop in 1970, Archbishop of Washington in 73, and a cardinal in 76. He voted in 3 conclaves to elect John Paul I, John Paul II, and Benedict XVI. In 1980, Baum was appointed to the Vatican, serving as the head of the Congregation for Catholic Education. He would later be named the Major Penitentiary, which oversees the forgiveness of sins. He was neighbors with the then Cardinal Ratzinger. Those who knew him say he was quiet, smart, and appreciated jokes.
His eyes got really big, and he would start this chuckle, but then he would sense that, well, maybe that's not quite the thing to do. So his hand would kind of come up to his mouth, but he would always get a good laugh.
America's longest-serving cardinal died in the nation's capital last week. Cardinal Baum was 88 years old. Washington's Cardinal Donald Wuerl will have a special mass tonight. The funeral services are tomorrow. We know of at least 8 cardinals attending, as well as bishops and archbishops, and Cardinal Baum's body will be interred inside in the cathedral's crypt. Brian?
All right, Jason Calvi at the Cathedral of St. Matthew, thanks for joining us. And a judge agrees with the Archdiocese of Los Angeles that an order of nuns improperly sold their hilltop convent overlooking Hollywood. The judge also delays the Archbishop's sale of that prime property to pop singer Katy Perry. The Sisters of the Most Holy and Immaculate Heart of the Blessed Virgin Mary opposed that $14.5 million sale. They made an earlier deal with a businesswoman who wants to develop that property into a hotel and restaurant. Attorneys for Archbishop Jose Gomez successfully argued today the nuns did not have the authority to make that deal. Medicare supporters gather here in Washington today. They're marking the health care program's 50th anniversary. Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders joined the rally. The Vermont senator told the crowd all Americans deserve health care.
And there is no human right that I know that is more important than to say loudly and clearly, health care is a right of all people, not a privilege.
Certainly the right to life is as well. Trump. Meanwhile, a new Quinnipiac University poll shows in a hypothetical matchup, Sanders tops Republican frontrunner Donald Trump by 5 percentage points. Trump also trails Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton in that same poll. So Trump has many critics, one of his fiercest, former Texas Governor Rick Perry. As Perry calls for Trump to drop out of the presidential race, the war of words could be raised a notch.
He questioned your energy, toughness, and quote-unquote brain power that it might require to run a successful campaign. What would you say to Mr. Trump if he were standing here saying that in your presence?
Let's get a pull-up bar out there and see who can do the most pull-ups.
Perry's remarks came after a speech he gave on reforming Wall Street. Political consultant John Brabender is with us tonight, so we'll talk about Trump again in a moment. But when will a leader emerge from this pack of Republican candidates?
No time soon. I mean, first of all, you've got roughly 16 candidates, and almost every single one of them is credible. A lot of experience. You've got 2-term governors, 2-term senators, successful businessmen and women, medical profession. And so it is going to take a long time to fall out. We're in what I call the silly season. This is where the people who are generally rising to the top, like a Donald Trump early on, it's almost more of a protest vote. It's almost more like, if you go test drive a car and they say, hey, we have this new model that goes 200 miles an hour, you want to test drive that first, but you also realize at some point you got to get your kids to school, and practicality comes back to earth.
But meanwhile, the party seems to be in disarray. When will it find its focus?
Well, the difficulty that the party has is how do they let the candidates dictate the message and who's going to be our nominee without too much interference, but at the same time be so far removed that there's no message coming through. The one thing I wish they would spend more time is to stand up and say, look, we're not doing ourselves any favor having personal attacks against each other, like the Rick Perry and Donald Trump attacks, because the only one that's putting a big smile on the face of is Hillary Clinton. And ultimately, that's our opponent, and we have to win in November.
Well, we saw on the Hill this week the whole Planned Parenthood issue, and we saw some of the presidential candidates now calling for the defunding. Is this something that the party can rally around, or does it become divisive and a distraction?
Well, my argument would be if we can't rally behind this, we have a sick party. We have a party that is ill and has no strength to it. I mean, all you have to do is look at the news stories regarding this. This is something that we should agree with. This is something all common sense people should agree with. And I sure hope that it does get defunded. I do hope that every one of those candidates at the debate next week stand up and say they support that.
Only 10 candidates will make the cut for that debate. However, you say that the guys that don't make the cut might have a bit of an advantage.
Well, there's two problems that if you do make the 10. One is the other debate's going to have a fewer number of people, and so they're going to get a lot of attention. They're going to have a chance to talk even longer. Second of all, with Donald Trump in the second debate, Donald Trump is first going to be Donald Trump, which means he's going to get all the secondary press. And number two, the press is really going to want to ask him more questions than anybody else.
All right. Political consultant John Brabender, thanks for joining us. We hope you come back.
Looking forward to it.
And bond is set at $1 million for a fired University of Cincinnati police officer charged with murdering a man during a traffic stop. Wyatt Goolsby reports.
Is this your car?
This police body cam shows how quickly the July 19th situation escalated. The man wearing it, Officer Ray Tenzing of the University of Cincinnati Police, now charged with murder in the fatal shooting of 43-year-old Samuel DuBose.
Hey, how's it going, man?
It all starts with a traffic stop.
We don't have a front license plate on your car.
Officer Tenzing asked DuBose for his driver's license, and the two argue back and forth.
No, I'm not just minute. Why don't you have your license on you? I'm just done. I'm sorry, sir.
Tenzing then asks DuBose to take his seatbelt off and opens the car door. DuBose tries to pull it back shut.
I didn't even do nothing. Go and take your seatbelt off. Stop.
The officer's weapon comes into frame as he reaches into the car. Then, less than 2 minutes into the traffic stop, one shot is fired at DuBose. DuBose's car speeds off and crashes into an embankment down the street. The 25-year-old officer told investigators he was dragged by the car and forced to shoot at DuBose. The prosecutor who released the video Wednesday doesn't accept that claim.
He wasn't dealing with someone who was wanted for murder, okay? He was dealing with someone who didn't have a front license plate. If he's starting to roll away, just seriously, let him go. I mean, you don't have to shoot him in the head. And that's what happened.
DuBose's family, heartbroken.
Anyone who's now looked at that video understands that Sam was who Sam always has been, and that was peaceful and non-aggressive. We want his memory to remain intact as a peaceful person, and we do not want any violence.
Tenzing turned himself in Wednesday afternoon on charges of murder and involuntary manslaughter. Following the indictment, the University of Cincinnati fired the officer. Wyatt Goolsby, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Wyatt. The families of two missing teens vow to keep searching for them, even if the Coast Guard doesn't. Crews continue tonight surveying coastal waters from Florida through South Carolina. It's almost a week now since the teens were last seen as they left on a fishing boat, which was later found capsized. The Coast Guard plans to keep searching for the two at least through tomorrow. The Afghan government finally confirms the reclusive leader of the Taliban is dead. In fact, Mullah Muhammad Omar has been dead for 2 years. His death in Karachi, Pakistan had long been rumored, but the Taliban always dismissed those reports. Omar created the Taliban in the 1990s. That extremist group is now riddled by internal division and challenged by the rise of ISIS. French investigators try to determine if a recently found piece of debris is from a missing Malaysia Airlines jet. A piece of a wing washed ashore on Reunion Island off the coast of Madagascar. Malaysian flight MH370 disappeared in March of last year. Loved ones of some of the 239 passengers are cautious about getting their hopes up.
You know, we've lived for 16 months in a state of limbo with absolutely no concrete information. And in fact, a lot of misdirection by the officials. And so we've become very suspicious of anything that can't be proven through a third party.
France's foreign ministry says the origin of that wing part is still unclear. A cyber attack on United Airlines this spring may have been the work of the same hackers who breached the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. U.S. officials think those hackers are backed by China. United hasn't confirmed the hack, which was first reported by Bloomberg News, citing anonymous sources. The hackers allegedly gained access to passenger flight information and itineraries. Coming up, thousands of migrants try crossing the English Channel through the tunnel connecting France and Great Britain. And who knows how many more catacombs will be uncovered as the church preserves its ancient heritage. The most powerful witness to marriage is the exemplary lives of Christian spouses. A tweet from Pope Francis today. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Brian Patrick. Well, French police increased their presence around the Eurotunnel connecting France with Great Britain. Thousands of migrants have tried to leave for the UK through that tunnel. Each night this week, crowds of people have tried to breach tunnel security near the port of Calais, France. Up to 2,000 migrants at a time attempt to swarm through the tunnel entrance. British Prime Minister David Cameron says the UK will deport more illegal migrants. He says it is one way of deterring what he calls a swarm of people coming from North Africa. An intriguing image dating back to the mid-3rd century is recently restored in Rome's catacomb of St. Calixtus. It is a painting of the mythical Orpheus with a lyre, surrounded by creatures and flowers representing the whole of creation. The figure of Orpheus was used by early Christian artists as an image of Jesus, the Good Shepherd. During the restoration process, the Vatican's Archaeology Commission also discovered several tombs and more than 300 coins. Joining us from Rome tonight is Olaf Brandt of the Pontifical Institute of Christian Archaeology. And the Vatican has jurisdiction over all the catacombs. How many and where are they?
They are around 120, around half of them in Rome, and the rest of them are in the area north of Rome, in Naples and Sicily. All areas with volcanoes, which is where it is particularly easy to excavate the tunnels.
What was the original role of the catacombs?
They were cemeteries, burial places, organized and created by the early church in order to provide free or at least very cheap burials for poor Christians. So it's a kind of expression of the care for the poor. And they were also created in order to allow undisturbed celebration of Christian rites.
Well, I'm sure that many, many very interesting artifacts and valuable treasures have been uncovered. In fact, in Rome's St. Calixtus catacombs, they've just uncovered a fresco of an image of Jesus. How many of these catacombs are still out there to be uncovered?
Well, you know, that's very difficult to answer exactly because they haven't been discovered yet. But I can tell you that here in Rome, I think every year they discover a new catacomb or at least part of a catacomb. So there are many catacombs still to be discovered.
Well, it must be fascinating work, and certainly these are great treasures for the church and for the world. From Rome tonight is Olaf Brandt with the Pontifical Institute of Christian Archaeology. Olaf, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And it is a rainy Rome there. Well, before surround sound and even before talkies, movie soundtracks were experienced through live music. After a journey from the U.S. to the U.K. in 1930, this Wurlitzer theater pipe organ fell out of use in the 1960s. Now, after a 6-year restoration, it's making movie music again.
So the sound that comes from having one of these instruments in a big theatre is very unique, and so this will be arguably the first time for many decades that it's possible to hear that in this country.
The organ will be played during a grand performance in a vintage 1930s venue in London next month. Up next, we explore the beauty of faith with artwork depicting the Virgin Mary's parents. And a computer calls balls and strikes for a Northern California independent baseball league.
Gotcha.
On this July 30th, a Thursday, we feature the beauty of faith on EWTN News Nightly. I'm Brian Patrick, and Dr. Jem Sullivan, a former National Gallery of Art guide, is the author of The Beauty of Faith, using Christian art to spread the good news. Sunday was the feast of the parents of Mary, the grandparents of Jesus, Saints Anne and Joachim. We have 3 panels depicting this saintly couple. What is the first show?
Yes, they make us wonder, what was it like to raise the child who would one day be the mother of God? St. Joachim and Anne do that, and in this panel, they are giving food to the hungry, they are offering gifts to the temple. This is a visual homily on this ordinary couple and their extraordinary faith and love. of God. They teach us, really, both parents and grandparents, that it's important to educate, nurture children in the faith, and to show them a life of virtue and self-sacrificial love. Because after all, self-sacrificial love was at the heart of their marriage and at the heart of their family life.
So Mary is conceived immaculately, the only human that we know. So the Holy Spirit in the middle of this marriage, and the second depiction is of her birth, right? Her actual birth.
That's right. That's the second in the series. And we see a more intimate scene, an interior scene, where you have Mary has just been born. St. Joachim is on the outside, waiting patiently, perhaps anxiously, for the news of the birth of his daughter. St. Anne has just given birth to the girl, the child who will one day be the mother of God. Two companions help to raise the little baby and take care of her, while two other women are ministering, giving gifts to St. Anne, the new mother. The family is the basic cell of society. It is the cradle of life and love. It is where the individual is born and grows. These words of St. John Paul II remind us that the importance of the family, as we see especially in the life of the Virgin Mary.
And such warm images from this artist. So the final panel then is the presentation of Mary.
That's right. The presentation of Mary. We know this moment in her life from apocryphal writings. The moment when she is brought to the temple, presented to the temple by Saints Joachim and Anne. And in a wonderful way, the artist shows us Mary ascending the steps. She turns to look back to Saint Joachim and Anne with a very human, childlike way, with love. Mary was consecrated to God from the first moments of her life. And even as she's being prepared to enter into the temple, she is also becoming the temple of the Lord, who, as she bears the Son of God into the world.
I find it interesting that she's not wearing blue. I guess as a little girl, she didn't wear blue.
That's right, later on.
Well, the book is called The Beauty of Faith, Using Christian Art to Spread the Good News by Dr. Jem Sullivan. Thanks so much, and we'll have you back again for another edition of The Beauty of Faith.
Thank you so much.
Well, there's no booing the umpire for a questionable third strike call at a Northern California Independent Baseball League. Mark Irons reports on a computer calling the balls and strikes as the home plate umpire handles other duties.
The old ball game has a new high-tech twist. For the first time in a pro game, the umpire calling balls and strikes at this Northern California minor league park was replaced by a computer. 3 cameras installed around the field were used to set the strike zone for each batter within an inch of accuracy.
Ball, barely.
Former major leaguer and automated ump advocate Eric Burns oversaw the computer and relayed the calls to players and fans.
The computer got you.
As much as the baseball traditionalists want to resist it, it's coming.
Some say the so-called Robo ump is just an extension of instant replay, once resisted but now accepted in the major leagues. Umpires are still in the field to call foul balls and ump the bases.
Since we found out more about it, how it's going to work, where it's going to work, I've had more positive feedback than I have negative.
Some baseball purists are not thrilled about the thought of losing what they call the human element of the game. For example, can a coach or player get ejected if they disagree with a call and yell at the computer?
Yeah, it is different. I don't know, I almost want to be the first one to get tossed out for that, because it would be pretty cool.
There are no plans yet to expand the experimental technology to other minor leagues, and most fans doubt it will ever make it to the major leagues. But some say the game is constantly evolving.
I grew up never wanting the designated hitter, but after seeing it for years, I like both sides of it. So I think it'll be accepted, but it'll take a while.
Burns said he envisions a day when fans at the ballpark will instantly receive the ball and strike calls on their smartwatches.
Go Pacifics!
Mark Irons, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Mark. As long as they keep the real peanuts, Cracker Jacks, and hot dogs at the ballpark, we'll be okay. Until tomorrow, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. You can watch again on EWTN's YouTube page. For our EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. Good night, and God bless you.